Hello everyone. Welcome to the Belmont Journal, Belmont's own program for hyperlocal news and community affairs programming. I'm your host, Roger Colton. Construction on Belmont High School will begin this June, and with that construction will come traffic disruption, traffic congestion. The high school construction will affect the neighborhoods and streets surrounding the new school. Because of that, there's going to be a public hearing at the Beach Street Center on April 10th at 7 o'clock to allow people to hear about and express opinions about the impacts of and the responses to the traffic associated with the construction. Welcome to This Week in the Belmont Citizen Herald. I have with me today Joanna Juvelis, who is the multimedia journalist for the Citizen Herald and Wicked Local Belmont, Belmont's online and print source of local news. Thanks for stopping over.
You're welcome, Roger.
Let's get right to traffic. There has been one accident after another in the past week.
Yes, I talked to the Belmont police, as I do every week, and between March 25th and April 1st, there were 3 accidents involving pedestrians and a bicyclist on 3 different occasions. One of the accidents involved a teen from the Chenery Middle School who was walking to the center after school like they always do on a nice day, and she was struck, unfortunately, and she had a knee laceration, had to go to Children's Hospital. She's okay, and the driver wasn't cited though because it didn't happen in a crosswalk. And she didn't see her in time, which is unfortunate.
And a bicyclist?
Another car waved her on too. That's important to note. So I think we should warn our kids that even if a car waves you on, you should really, really be careful. And the other accident was on Trapello Road involving a pedestrian. A woman who was helping an elderly woman cross the street got struck and actually fell on top of the elderly woman she was helping. That was unfortunate. That was someone backing out who wasn't paying attention. And then there was another accident. A bicyclist was struck on Concord Avenue.
Now, this isn't a cause and effect, but it just so happens that the town also completed its traffic study this week.
Yes, well, it's been completed. They presented it to the selectmen.
To the Board of Selectmen, yes.
And so I think it's important to note that, they are aware that they need to do something to increase the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists with the amount of cars on the road. And this study, you want to talk about some of the things that came out in the study?
Well, 1,100 pedestrians in Cushing Square?
Yes, that's what the study looked at. 22 different locations in Belmont over a 6-hour period, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that's what they found, 1,100 pedestrians on Cushing Square.
And how many cars on Trapello Road?
22,000
yes.
in that one 12-hour period.
So the question is not, what's the problem? We all know there's a problem. Yeah. What are the next steps now that we've got some numbers?
Also worth noting, there's a lot of this is cut-through traffic from neighboring towns. It's not just Belmont cars, so that's worth noting. And yes, the next
And it's
steps,
time sensitive,
yes,
going in during
rush
the
hour, morning, afternoon. So the next step is the Transportation Advisory Committee will be tasked with reviewing this study and coming up with solutions. They're going to look at ways that maybe they can separate commuter traffic from Belmont traffic, which I think is an important thing. How they can slow cars down. Maybe there's a way they can add roundabouts somewhere or add barriers in other locations.
So my takeaway was that we now know what needs to be done. We need to decide how to do it.
It's a question of when and how.
And how much money.
Also, what came up at the selectmen meeting on April 1st was that the Belmont Hill School is applying for a grant. Well, actually, they want the town to apply for this grant. They're going to pay for all the design. They actually have a design ready to go to improve traffic and calm traffic on Park Avenue off of Route 2.
Yes.
So I think that's great because they're gonna pay for it, and it's a grant, so it won't cost the town a thing. And they talked about how they're gonna make the roundabout smaller, tighter, to get cars to slow down.
Well, thanks for bringing us up to date. We've been speaking about traffic, an ongoing issue in the town of Belmont. We now know more about the problem. We've been speaking with Joanna Juvelis, the multimedia journalist for the Belmont Citizen Herald and Wicked Local Belmont. You can read about these stories and more in the Citizen Herald or online at Wicked Local Belmont. Welcome to This Week in the Belmontonian. I have with me today Franklin Tucker, who is the editor and publisher of the Belmontonian, Belmont's online source for hyperlocal news. Thanks for stopping over.
Thank you very much.
The votes have been cast, the votes have been counted, and there are winners and losers. Can you bring us up to date?
That's right. We had our annual town election this year, and in the feature race, I would guess it would be called.
Sure.
It would be for the Board of Selectmen. Roy Epstein, a very well-known person who's been involved with boards and committees for the last 15 years, beat out a challenge from Jesse Bennett and Tim Flood. It was a very competitive race, and I think it was a very good race. It was a race of two sides of this town. One was more an established side, which favored Mr. Epstein, and a more progressive side, which favored Ms. Bennett. They both brought very good credentials, but I think what really made the difference, and a 120 vote, 120 to 130
It was
vote,
almost 50-50.
That's right. What really changed maybe just enough people's minds is that Roy had a great deal of experience with finance and how the town is structured. So I think experience really won out there. It's not that Jesse wouldn't have been a very good leader. It's just that people felt a little bit more secure with Roy.
And Jesse Bennett, even though she didn't prevail, she won 6 of the 8 precincts.
That's right. She won all but I would say the western part of Belmont, which is Belmont Hill, and also Waverly Square. In that area.
Okay, let's talk about the school committee. There were 3 candidates running for 2 positions.
Well, this was a pretty, we became a pretty standard race, which we had an incumbent, Andrea Presswich, and then we had Amy Chekowicz, who really really campaigned for the seat. The third person, Peter Panazopoulos, he didn't do much campaigning, wasn't around a lot. So it was the 2 women who really stepped it up, and they really showed that they really wanted to be on the board.
And they ran away with the race, really. It was close between the top 2.
But there were 2 seats up,
but
so
there were 2 seats
you
open.
only had to finish second. It didn't matter whether you were first or second. It just mattered if you were the first 2.
And then with the Housing Authority, were you surprised with the Housing Authority? Is that a fair question?
I think it was a great race to show that it was a race where you had an untraditional candidate in Cassandra Page, who is a resident of Belmont Public Housing, Belmont Village, who decided that she was going to run as a person who really has a lot of knowledge about the residents there, which we really didn't have in the past. She beat out Tommy Olson, a well-established figure again in Belmont, but I think people, especially the progressive wing in Belmont, really backed her, and she won.
Back Page.
And came through with a very good victory, and she's going to be a surprising candidate. I wonder if she's going to be looking to do something else in the future. She's a very compelling individual.
Well, thank you very much. So Roy Epstein wins the Selectmen, Amy Chekowicz and Andrea Presswich win the school committee, and Cassandra Page wins the Housing Authority.
It was a great time for democracy in Belmont.
We've been speaking with Franklin Tucker, the editor and publisher of the Belmontonian. Springtime in Belmont brings warm weather and leaves on our trees. One additional way we know it's springtime in Belmont, however, is the presence of DPW crews fixing our streets. The Belmont Journal sat down with Assistant DPW Director Mike Santoro to talk about the repair of streets.
Hi, my name's Mike Santoro. We have a lot of potholes in Belmont, unfortunately. So our patching season lasts every season of the year. We have crews out practically every day and every season of the year here in Belmont. We have good years and bad years. Usually if you have a very bad winter, it'll be a bad year for potholes. This year's weather that we've had was considerably a bad year because it would start out as sleet, then it would go to a freeze, then it would go to rain, and then back to a freeze. So that's a prime candidate to create for potholes. So it was a bad year. Even though we didn't get a lot of snow, it was a bad year because of the way the precipitation was bad, so it created a lot of potholes. We receive basically our calls through the residents that call in, or through our online work order request, or we get calls from the police department. And usually we're pretty good in getting the bigger and the major roads first, and then we try to go into the side streets after that. When we go out to patch a pothole and we go to a selected street, we just don't do the one pothole. We will take the whole street and check the whole street. And then, we might even, if we're in a neighborhood, we might just take the whole neighborhood. Like if we're up off of Mill Street and we're in the Kendall Gardens area, Lorem or Stanley, we're just going to run that whole little section and just do it while we're there. It just makes sense. We have an annual budget for potholes. It's an our street budget. I try to increase it each year, minimally, 1 or 2% each year. It seems to be, it's holding. It holds every year. Fortunately, the Board of Selectmen have been very good to us. They let us increase it, and it seems to hold up very well.
On April 12th, Belmont's Nathaniel Meyer will lead the Du Bois Orchestra in performing a composition by Florence Price. Price was the first African-American woman to ever be recognized as a symphonic composer. BMC's Dan Dunbar was at a recent rehearsal.
The name comes from W.E.B. Du Bois, who was the first African-American student to receive a PhD from Harvard, and somebody who loved classical music deeply. He traveled to Europe. He heard the great pieces played in the great concert halls of Europe, Beethoven and Schubert and Wagner, and he fell in love with music. And he became inspired, and he said, I think that African Americans can achieve just as great things musically and be part of this great tradition. This was at a really pivotal moment for Du Bois, who is the grandfather or the father of the American Civil Rights movement in many ways. For Du Bois, music was a metaphor for emancipation and redemption and acceptance. 194. Florence Price was the first African-American female composer to have a piece played by a major symphony orchestra. She had been trained here in Boston. Florence Price studied at the New England Conservatory, graduated in 1906. In her lifetime, she composed over 300 works. And depending on how you tally it up, she's one of the most prolific composers that we have in the American musical tradition. And her work was lost for many, many years. Turns out that they were in a house outside of Chicago, and a husband and wife couple were renovating the house back in 2009. It had been derelict, people had been squatting there, and all around on the floor they found manuscripts. These manuscripts were the lost manuscripts. They were the key that the scholars were looking for. And one of these works is the piece that we are premiering here in Boston. This piece is based on a poem by Vachel Lindsay, who's one of America's great poets, who wrote the poem Abraham Lincoln Walks at Midnight about World War I. It talks about the ghost of Abraham Lincoln coming back to walk through Springfield, Illinois, looking around at the state of the world. And Florence Price's setting of the poetry is at once melancholic and redemptive. At the end, you're left with a feeling of hope is perhaps too strong a word for it, but because it ends with a question. have an orchestra of college and conservatory students and community members, including a couple classmates of mine from Belmont High, coming back together. The band gets back together. Everybody is here for the same reason, and that is to play works that have been forgotten, historical works that have been forgotten. The purpose of art is to inspire and uplift the community, and we can do that best by playing pieces that are representative of the whole community. It's an incredible story. Florence Price is a legacy of America. She is one of our great voices.
Here's the Belmont Media Center's Jane Peters to tell us about what there is to do in Belmont in the coming week. Before going to that conversation, let's listen in to Jane as she speaks with Lynn Finley, who talks about one of Belmont's end of school year traditions, the Belmont High School all-night party.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane and this is your community calendar for next week. Before we get into next week's events, we have a special guest with us today. We have Lynn Finlay with us. She is the mother of the junior class president of the Belmont High School and is in charge of the all-night party this year for the graduating seniors. So thank you so much for being here to talk about it today. The all-night party is a safe and fun way for seniors to celebrate graduation, and you've got tons of events lined up for them to take part in. Can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going to be going on?
Well, most of it is a secret,
Yeah.
so we can't really share too much about it, but it is a Belmont tradition for about 45 years where the graduating class all gathers one more time at the high school for an all-night secret party from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's all volunteer run. All donations, lots of hard work by many, many parents and businesses and community leaders. So it's just a fantastic event, and we're looking forward to June 2nd.
Great. So an event like this goes on all night long. You do have a lot of volunteers, but it does take a lot of money to pull this kind of event off. And so you've got some fundraising opportunities for people to take part in. Can you talk about some of those?
We sure do. Our business sponsors have been incredibly generous. Watersound Savings Bank has been a lead sponsor this year, which is fantastic. We've also got some new fundraising opportunities. Not Your Average Joe's in Arlington is sponsoring an event, a promotion that for the entire month of April, if you mention the Belmont High School all-night party, they'll donate 15% of your bill back to the party, which is great. Yeah. And then we also have a pre-Mother's Day sort of flower arranging shopping night at the Lions Club that's being sponsored by Paradise Flowers, which is a local Cushing Square business. So those are the two main fundraisers that we have coming up or that are happening now. And then just businesses have been incredibly generous in years past and this year with helping fund the event.
Great.
And parent donations and ticket sales. Those are what
And people can make donations directly to the party on your website?
They sure can. bhsallnightparty.com. There's a link there that you can click on, and it's very easy to donate.
Awesome. And so not only does it take a lot of money, but it takes a lot of help. So you've got tons of volunteers helping put together the party, and then you'll also need chaperones and people to help.
We sure will. Again, BHS All Night Party. If you can come for a couple hours or stay for all night, we would love to have as many people as we can. It does take a tremendous amount of time and energy to create this event, and we are looking for as many volunteers as we possibly can get. You don't have to be a junior class parent to volunteer, and it's fun because people love to be involved in this big secret party that's been going on in town for many years.
Okay, and so there's lots of involvement from the community outside of just donating, and you've got quite a few volunteers.
We've got a really great thing going on this year. Our decorating committee has partnered with the Beach Street Center and some of the seniors over there, and every week they work in secret on some of the props and things for the all-night party, which I think is such a great way to continue to involve the community. Many of these people may have had children or grandchildren that have gone to the all-night party, and so it's kind of a special thing for them. And as part of that, we're going to invite them to come early to preview all the work that they've done. They don't know the theme, but they know some of the components that are going into it. So it's just a lot of fun to partner with them and make everybody feel a part of this whole big tradition.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see what the theme is this year. I know it's a secret right now, but we'll know it come June 3rd.
2 months, yep.
Great. So we hope you have a very successful event, that everyone gets to have a lot of fun and celebrate the graduating seniors.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And again, you can head to Belmont All Night Party website to donate and find out more information. And with that, we will get into next week's events. Born in Belgium in 1939 to Jewish parents who fled Berlin, Sylvia Ruth Gutman spent the first 3 years of her life hiding with her family in the south of France. Sylvia saw her parents deported to Auschwitz, was taken in at 7 by relatives in New York City, and spent 5 decades struggling to understand the past she was too young to remember. Hear from Gutman about her book, A Life Rebuilt, on Monday at 11 a.m. at the Belmont Public Library. Aspiring poets and expert word crafters looking to share their work are invited to Belmont Books' Open Mic Poetry Night on Tuesday at 7. Each poet may share about 5 minutes of poetry and can sign up in store or by emailing events@belmontbooks.com. Debbie Irving, author of Waking Up White, presents the second in Basics 2019 Parent Lecture Series. Her presentation is designed to support people in making the paradigm shift from fixing and helping those believed to be inferior to focusing on internalized white superiority and its role in perpetuating racism. Join the discussion on Wednesday at 6:30 in the Chenery Auditorium. Citizens are bombarded with advice on actions they should take to address the impacts of global warming. The Belmont Energy Committee presents a forum on Wednesday at 7 to help you and the town make a real difference in preventing climate change. Visit belmontclimateaction.org to learn more. All ages are invited to participate in the Beach Street Center's 7th annual Peeps Diorama Contest. Submit your diorama on Thursday at 2:45 or head down to vote on your favorite beginning at 3 p.m. Come celebrate the colors and joy of spring with this fun family contest. Meet 18 local authors at the Spring into Summer Reading Author Festival and Book Fair at Chenery Middle School on Thursday from 3 to 5:30. The festival will be followed by a signing at 6:30 at Belmont Books. The Belmont Gallery of Art's newest exhibit, Spring Awakening, opens on Friday with a wine reception from 6 to 8:30. On Saturday, Lauren Meyer will be giving a gallery talk on the legacy of Frederick Law Olmsted, known widely as the founder of American landscape architecture. You can view the Spring Awakening exhibit on display through May 16th. Project Bread's Walk for Hunger raises money to feed hungry families and end hunger in Massachusetts. You can support the Belmont High School team on Saturday, April 13th at Davis Square's Chipotle. Visit the restaurant between 4 and 8, and Chipotle will donate 33% of sales to the BHS team. You can also visit projectbread.org to donate to the team directly. And that's all for next week. If you'd like your event featured in Belmont Journal's community calendar, you can send your event info to jane@belmontmedia.org.
The Belmont High School Jazz Ensemble recently received a gold medal for its performance in the State High School Jazz Ensemble competition. By winning a gold medal, the Jazz Ensemble has been asked to compete in the statewide Gold Medal Showcase on Sunday, May 19th at the Hatch Memorial Shell in Boston. Let's enjoy a few minutes of the recent Belmont High School performance.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Belmont Journal. As we sign off, let's watch what's available on the Belmont Media Center's other community programming station. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Roger Colton. I will see you again next time.